September and October updates by Chief Budget Officer. Well, we've been working on the budget for a while, folks, and we just got handed a 10% property tax hike, so
Just so
there
that
we
it's
are.
clear, I put this on the agenda. The supervisor's known for a couple of months now the fact that we need to have some monthly updates. So I would just ask for the monthly update. That's why in September we first heard about the horrendous situation that now we're sitting here knowing that our revenues are depleted.
It's not true.
We have to have tax increases, which have angered the people in the audience today, to cover expenses which we've had in the past, which now we can't cover. Therefore, I, for one, had said that I want the monthly updates, and I'm going to ask now for the monthly update. I know that I had received an envelope, and I believe it has the accountant's month-end budget report for October of 2010, issued on November 9th, 2010. So I would just like to hear from the supervisor as far as what's happening at this point. Not, believe me, we've had quite a bit of discussion about 2011. I'd like to see what's happening with 2010.
Well, what's happening is, as we've discussed in the past, I've consulted, in fact, I worked with him today, the financial consultant, about developing a simple report. He recommended the KISS approach with pie charts and whatnot. And I'm looking to freshen the approach used by the supervisor's office in that regard. To this point in time, I followed the procedures set by all of my predecessors, as far as I know. John, Lois, Ed, Doug, and the rest. So there's nothing new there, and there's no there. We did have the comptroller in over the summer, as I had reported. In June, we had talked about the rate of burn of the unexpended fund balance being on target to deplete the unexpended fund balance by the end of the year, which has more or less occurred. And I regret that the town board earlier passed a 10% property tax hike, but there it is. So the gravy train is protected and under full steam.
It's
I
less than,
think it's
it's
interesting.
it's less than 10%. I resent the gravy train innuendos.
And I think it's interesting that
innuendo.
I think it's interesting that
I
the
said it.
supervisor is adopting the what happened with prior supervisors, who he calls the old guard. What I would like to hear right now is an analysis of the month-end budget report for October of 2010, because that's at least Bob and I were new on this board, and it would have been nice to know a lot more and have these month-end reports spoken to by the chief financial officer. So I'd like to know right now what specifically has occurred in the month of October that the supervisor can speak to specifically, not talk about pie charts or KISS or anything else. I want to know specifically, since the supervisor has known for at least 2 months now, or maybe 3, that we were going to request this monthly report. It doesn't have to be 15, 20 minutes. It just needs to be succinct enough so that this board can know January, February, and the Rosemarys of the town can know ahead of time what we're facing, because that was a legitimate concern, and I'd like to have it addressed now.
Well, earlier this evening, Councilwoman, you voted to approve a voucher list of $1,449,508. I have here the checks. Been working on those to sign them tonight. So that voucher list was approved. So I'm sure you're up to speed on everything you need to be up to speed on to approve a $1.4 million voucher and a 10% property tax increase for next year.
This is the report, the month-end report that I wanted to know about. Obviously, the supervisor doesn't have a response, and maybe somebody in the audience has a response. I don't know, but right now, we don't have the response. And it's a shame, because in fact, we did not know the gravity of the situation that the town was in until September. And our accountant, Ron Hun, had sent us a letter with the report, and right now we still don't know what's happening.
Okay, that's part of the issue, Councilwoman. You just said that you didn't know until Ron Hun told you, in months after I had told you.
It wasn't months after,
now
and
that is a
a
dislocation,
fabrication, which is
and that
another
is-
word for dishonest. We did not know.
Is there public comment?
Lynn Eckhart. Actually, this was something that I had requested and I think will be very helpful. Thank you, Councilwoman Hudak, for pursuing it. So my question would be, the vouchers seemed high to me. Were there any unusual expenditures in October? Anything that we should know about the public?
Lynn, if you have a point, go ahead and make your point.
It's actually, it is, I honestly
As part of the public record.
Well,
If you have a point,
I can,
make your point.
yeah, make your point, then I can answer one of those, because I found something odd in
well, it's not, I'm not making a point. I'm curious, and that is why I'm asking a question, and I'll repeat the question. The voucher list seemed high to me. Maybe it wasn't. You can answer that as the chief budget officer. If it's normal, that's fine, but were there any unusual expenditures in October?
Yes, I found one when signing the vouchers. Despite the draft report from the State Controller's report, and now we have the final report. Despite that draft report, a check for $18,000+ was signed to the town attorney. And that report criticized the town board for doing so. In other words, the town attorney is either the town employee or he's an independent contractor, and that was noted in this report. Despite that, 3 members of the town board signed a check for over $18,000.
That was not signed.
That wasn't signed.
That was not signed.
That was not signed, Mr. Yee.
No,
It's inaccurate.
You're inaccurate and you're wrong.
you can keep defending it.
It wasn't signed.
Councilwoman, you don't have the floor. Councilman Yee has
The
the floor.
last group of vouchers, the October voucher list submitted to, was not signed. And that's what Councilwoman Hudak is getting now. So if they were continue to cover the gravy train or whatever we may call it, you have asked for specifics, and I have just given you one.
And why,
That practice needs to stop.
if, I don't know whether it was or wasn't signed, it is an expenditure, I mean, or
There was a
will become
voucher
one.
that was signed
Voucher.
by
So,
3 members of the town board
and so
for
I
that
assume
expense.
then that you looked into what this $18,000 covered, and maybe you could enlighten us.
Lynn, if you have a point, make your point.
That's something
I'm,
that I
okay,
think
I'll
the town
phrase it.
board
I
will-
feel like I'm on Jeopardy and I have to ask a
That's
question.
something we as a town board will address and have been trying to address as far as the expenditures, whether it's for the town attorney, legal services, engineering services, computer services.
But we're talking
We are now
about-
going
Can
to
I answer
address
your
this
question,
draft
Lynn?
report
That
because
would,
the draft
yes, it
report-
really is a question.
Because it seems to be a political nature
no,
that
no.
we continue to pick on the supervisor for
Ready?
not being
It's,
able to... Can I finish,
Pardon
please?
me. Councilman Yee
No.
has
It
the floor.
seems that we continue to...
No, he wants to
look
make
for-
a political statement, and
I'm
I
not-
want to answer the
It
question.
seems that we want to
All night
review
not
the
to be
September
interrupted.
and October
Please,
updates by
Councilman
the
Yee has
chief
the floor.
budget officer, and by
Take
doing
your
so, you requested that we put it on the agenda. I've directed and answered a question to you, and basically, we now have coverage from, now it's 3-3, I guess, because the controller has now confirmed many of the things that we have looked at.
We don't have coverage because you don't know what it's
We now have a review
for.
of the September and October updates by the chief budget officer, and one of the things that I found was an expenditure of $18,000, which I
But
will
what's it
now
for?
address with the town board and have that practice stop, because the last group of vouchers, the October one, was not signed by this town board. So hopefully that has made an impact.
So,
May I answer the question?
Yes, that would be great.
It was Brennan Construction Company, which is capping the landfill, was $813,388.50.
Okay.
So that's obviously a very high figure.
Okay.
So, very simple,
There were two.
the
Dwayne.
successful capping, that's an $813,000 amount, and the other large amount was Office of the State Comptroller, $54,395, and Ralph Burdick blacktopping for $54,900. And then suburban carting was $124,683.75, but as you know, that's the garbage, the garbage.
But we're not supposed to say the
And that's
one with
quarter
alleged mob ties.
what, on this,
That's,
They're fans of
That's what I
That-
just
that-
noted.
just in
You're not
case-
supposed to say that.
just remember, that's the AWS, which the supervisor and council member Yee wanted to have the contract last year. That has now been merged with Sanipro. So what means is that the old one, the mob tie one, the one that the marshals were running are now merged with this one, so, but.
Item 13, can we move
so,
on?
no, my question then
Okay,
is,
we're going to have to impose a
No, we
3-minute
can't
limit
impose
or
it now when
something
we
like
didn't
that.
impose it
Hours late,
for
you've
anyone
had
else.
if you would
public
answer my
discussion.
question, I'd be up and down in 2 minutes. Do you know the $54,000 plus for the state controller, what was that for? Pension, okay. And my last question was, I'm shocked if really is the first time you've met with the accountant today to discuss how you're going to do these reports?
No.
And
As I mentioned, pardon me, it's not an cross-examination. As I mentioned, I consulted with a financial expert today to develop a simple report, which I won't comment on further.
I'd like to know who it is, though.
Something that can be easily digested by my colleagues. And it was so there it is. So if
Okay,
you have a
and
point,
last-
make your point, and then let others talk.
my
Let's
point
move
then
on.
would be, will the public have to foil for these, whether whatever reports you get, or will we be able to look at them? I'm thinking it might be very helpful to put them on the town website so that we can have some oversight and maybe make recommendations rather than have a meeting like this next year.
Noted.
Would that be possible?
Item 13. Can we move on?
Yeah.
There's someone else who has a question, and I just wanted to know, would that be possible? Or would the board consider that?
It's been noted.
Noted.
Okay.
Just
Yes, sir.
one more thing with the accounting, the reports. The accounting department's in the process of upgrading its software to a new program. I forgot the name of it, but apparently it's going to be a lot better, and it'll be a little easier for us to see if there's red flags or problems. So hopefully that will help too.
Yes, go
I
ahead.
just have two questions. About the vouchers, I was just wondering, Supervisor, why you voted against them.
Pardon me?
And earlier, when you voted on to pass the vouchers, Supervisor Wright was the only one that voted against them. I was wondering why you voted against them.
I voted against them because
He signed
they contain
this.
they contain financial components which are part of the, as I characterize it, part of the gravy train. Gravy train has to stop. We've only been successful, the three of us, me, Councilman Yee, and the New York State Comptroller, at slowing down the gravy train, the economic gravy train enjoyed by political insiders.
Can you be more
And
specific?
what we need to do is stop the gravy train and unload our money from the gravy train and take it back.
I agree. Could you be more specific as to which payments you're talking about?
Not at this time, but
Oh, okay.
there will be
Thanks,
future
Mike.
developments.
All right. And my second question was the voucher that Councilman Yee was talking about towards the town attorney that you disapprove of. I was wondering if you could talk about what that money is for.
That's a question,
That's the same question that the state controller had to ask.
that's an excellent question, Greg.
Thank you.
That's the same
All right.
question.
No,
asked.
that's the answer I was looking for.
That's the
Okay.
same question asked by
You
the
either
state
pay him as a
comptroller.
town employee or you pay him as an independent contractor, and it's going out both ways. So that's the
Understood.
That's a great
That was-
question. Thank you
okay.
for asking.
That's right, and not
Thank you.
only, you had asked about $17,000 or $18,000, but the comptroller in the report that I distributed, and it's on the website and so forth, talks about $117,000 during the audit period, January 2009 to March 2010. And now there's an additional $18,000 on top of this $117,000. The comptroller referred that matter to the New York State local and state, the New York State and local retirement system, the New York State Pension Fund, for further analysis. So there may be further developments about that too, and we'll wait and see. There have been developments statewide with respect to similar issues, and we'll see whether or not this issue has a similar outcome.
Thank you. I want to also thank you for answering the question about the attorney, but refusing to answer the question about anything related to any of the other expenditures you disapprove of.
Greg, to answer you, that it's an open, it's freedom of information. If you want to come in
can
and
just
look at the
foil it.
voucher, you can, and from what I recollect, most of it was litigation.
Thank you. And early on, Dwight and I had proposed that we put the vouchers on the town board, but that was met by resistance by a different town board, the predecessor.
Yeah, we should get all those vouchers on the website.
Yeah. So the question is, what are they hiding and why?
Right.
Item 13, Deputy Supervisor.
I put this on the agenda, Deputy Supervisor reestablishment of the office, November 18, 2010. Whereas the position of the Deputy Supervisor has been abolished by resolution of the Town Board duly adopted on December 20th, 2007. And whereas Section